I'm Anna, and here with me today is Eric. Welcome back to the Emma podcast, where we break down the ideas shaping the future of life sciences, quality, and regulatory strategy. Today, we're digging into a topic that's moving fast and raising big questions across the industry: digital twins.
This is one of those concepts that sounds futuristic, but it's already starting to show up in real-world life sciences environments. From early R&D modeling to real-time manufacturing oversight, digital twins are changing how organizations understand, control, and optimize complex processes.
In this conversation, we're looking at what digital twins actually mean in a regulated context, how they're being used today, and what it takes to move from simulation to GMP operations without creating new compliance risk.
So with that in mind, let's get into it.
Digital twins have been around as a concept for a while, but in life sciences, they're starting to move from theory into real application. And what's interesting is how quickly that shift is happening. For a long time, digital twins were mostly associated with manufacturing or engineering. You'd hear them mentioned in aerospace or automotive, but not necessarily in regulated pharma or biotech environments.
Exactly. In life sciences, the stakes are different. You're dealing with patient safety, regulatory oversight, and highly complex systems. So adoption has been slower and more cautious. But now we're seeing digital twins move beyond R&D simulations and into real-time GMP operations.
That's a big leap. Modeling a process during development is one thing. Using a digital twin to monitor, predict, and optimize live manufacturing conditions under GMP is something else entirely.
What's driving this shift is a combination of pressure and possibility. On one side, companies are being pushed to increase efficiency, reduce deviations, and shorten timelines. On the other, the technology has matured enough to actually support those goals in a compliant way.
At its core, a digital twin is a virtual representation of a physical process, system, or product. In life sciences, that can mean anything from a bioreactor to a manufacturing line to an entire facility. The key difference now is that these models are increasingly connected to real time data.
That real-time connection changes everything. Instead of using models only during development, companies can simulate scenarios as they're happening. What happens if a parameter drifts? What if raw material variability increases? What if demand spikes unexpectedly?
Traditionally, those questions would be answered reactively after a deviation or during an investigation. Digital twins allow teams to explore those scenarios proactively before they turn into compliance or supply issues.
In R&D, this has already shown clear value. Digital twins can help optimize formulations, predict scale-up challenges, and reduce the number of physical experiments required. That saves time, reduces cost, and accelerates decision-making.
But the real transformation starts when those same models follow the product into manufacturing. Instead of starting over at tech transfer, the digital twin evolves alongside the process, becoming more accurate with more data.
That continuity is powerful. It creates a digital thread that connects development, scale-up, validation, and commercial manufacturing. And for organizations struggling with siloed data and disconnected systems, that's a major shift.
Of course, this raises an immediate question: how does this fit into a regulated GMP environment?
That's where a lot of organizations pause. Using predictive models in GMP operations feels risky if you're not sure how regulators will view them. And that hesitation makes sense. Any system that influences manufacturing decisions has to be validated, controlled, and well understood.
What we're seeing, though, is that digital twins don't have to replace existing controls. Instead, they can augment them. They become decision support tools, not autonomous decision makers. And
That distinction matters. A digital twin might flag a potential risk or suggest an optimization, but a qualified human still reviews and approves the action. From a compliance standpoint, that aligns much more closely with current regulatory expectations.
another important point is that digital twins aren't just about efficiency, they're also about quality. By better understanding process behavior and variability, teams can design more robust processes and reduce the likelihood of deviations in the first place.
And when deviations do occur, digital twins can support faster, more effective investigations. Instead of relying solely on historical data and assumptions, teams can simulate conditions and test hypotheses in a controlled digital environment.
As organizations move toward more advanced manufacturing models, including continuous manufacturing and decentralized production, the value of digital twins increases even further. These environments generate massive amounts of data that are difficult to interpret without advanced modeling.
Digital twins help turn that data into insight. They provide context, predict outcomes, and support better decisions across the product lifecycle.
In this episode, we're going to explore how digital twins are being used today in life sciences, what it takes to deploy them in GMP environments, and where organizations need to be careful as they scale adoption.
Because while the potential is enormous, success depends on governance, data integrity, and a clear understanding of how digital twins fit into existing quality systems.
That's where the conversation really begins.
Once digital twins move out of theory and into real operational use, the first question most organizations ask is whether they're even allowed to use them under GMP. And that hesitation makes sense. Life sciences teams are trained to be cautious, especially when new technology starts touching validated processes, release decisions, or compliance critical workflows.
The reality is that regulators are not opposed to digital twins. What they care about is clarity. They want to understand what the model is being used for, how it was developed, how it's maintained, and how its outputs are governed. In other words, the technology itself isn't the risk, but uncontrolled uses.
That brings us to one of the most important concepts in this space: intended use. A digital twin used for exploratory analysis or internal learning is very different from one used to support real-time manufacturing decisions. The moment a model begins to influence GMP operations, its risk profile changes.
And that's where organizations often get tripped up. They build powerful models without clearly defining boundaries. Who can access the outputs? Are the recommendations advisory or prescriptive? Can the model trigger alerts or can it initiate action? Those distinctions matter from a compliance standpoint.
From a validation perspective, digital twins don't fit neatly into traditional validation frameworks. They're dynamic. They learn. They evolve as new data is introduced. That doesn't mean they can't be validated, but it does mean organizations need to rethink how validation is approached.
Rather than validating a model as a static object, many organizations are moving toward validating the framework around the model. That includes the data sources, the modeling methodology, the assumptions built into the system, and the controls governing how outputs are used.
Change management becomes central here. Every time a digital twin is updated, retrained, or expanded to include new variables, there needs to be a documented assessment of impact. What changed? Why did it change? What risk does that introduce? And how is that risk mitigated?
This is where quality teams play a critical role. Digital twins should never live in isolation within IT or data science groups. They need to be embedded into quality systems with clear ownership, SOPs, and oversight mechanisms.
Another major consideration is explainability. Regulators and quality teams alike need to understand how a model arrives at its conclusions. Black box outputs are difficult to defend during inspections, especially when they influence GMP decisions.
That doesn't mean models need to be simplistic. It means that assumptions, logic, and limitations must be documented in a way that is understandable to non data scientists. Transparency builds trust, both internally and externally.
Data integrity also becomes exponentially more important. Digital twins rely on large volumes of data, often pulled from multiple systems. If upstream data is incomplete, delayed, or inaccurate, the model's outputs can be misleading.
Organizations need to ensure that data pipelines are validated, access controlled, and continuously monitored. This includes understanding how real time data is captured, stored, and transformed before it even reaches the model.
Another challenge that surfaces quickly is organizational readiness. Digital twins blur traditional boundaries between R&D, manufacturing, quality, and IT. Successful implementation requires cross-functional collaboration that many organizations aren't structured for today.
Manufacturing teams may be excited about optimization. Quality teams may be cautious about compliance risk. IT teams may focus on architecture and security. Aligning those perspectives early is critical to avoiding friction later.
There's also a cultural shift involved. Digital twins change how decisions are made. Instead of relying solely on historical experience or static specifications, teams are asked to engage with predictive insights. That requires training, trust, and a willingness to adapt established workflows.
And then there's the question of scale. A digital twin built for a single processor line is one thing. Scaling that capability across facilities, products, or regions introduces complexity. Consistency, governance, and standardization become increasingly important.
From a regulatory standpoint, inspectors are starting to ask more sophisticated questions. Not just do you use advanced analytics, but how do you control them? Sponsors and manufacturers that can clearly explain their digital twin strategy, governance model, and quality integration are far better positioned during inspections.
Looking forward, digital twins are likely to play a growing role in advanced manufacturing models. Continuous manufacturing, personalized medicine, and decentralized production all benefit from real time modeling and predictive control.
But the organizations that succeed won't be the ones chasing technology for its own sake. They'll be the ones that implement digital twins with purpose, discipline, and alignment to quality principles.
In the next part of this conversation, we'll start to look at where digital twins are already delivering value in GMP environments today, what early adopters are doing differently, and what lessons others can learn from those experiences.
Because digital twins aren't just a future concept anymore. They're becoming part of how modern life sciences organizations operate.
When you look at where digital twins are already delivering value in GMP environments, the examples tend to fall into a few clear categories. The most common starting point is process understanding and optimization, particularly in complex or highly variable manufacturing steps. And
In biologics manufacturing, for example, digital twins are being used to model bioreactor behavior in real time. Variables like temperature, pH, dissolved oxygen, and feed rates can be simulated continuously, allowing teams to see how small changes might affect yield or product quality before making adjustments on the floor.
that doesn't mean operators are blindly following model recommendations. Instead, the digital twin acts as an additional layer of insight. It helps teams anticipate trends, recognize early signals of drift, and make more informed decisions within established control strategies.
Another area where digital twins are gaining traction is deviation prevention. Rather than reacting to deviations after they occur, organizations are using models to identify conditions that historically lead to issues. When those conditions start to emerge, teams can intervene earlier.
This is a subtle but important shift. Quality moves from being reactive to being predictive. Instead of investigating what went wrong, teams spend more time preventing problems from happening in the first place.
Digital twins are also being applied during tech transfer and scale up. Transferring a process from development into manufacturing is one of the most risk-prone moments in the product lifecycle. Models that have been refined during R&D can help teams anticipate how processes will behave at commercial scale.
That continuity reduces surprises. It allows teams to test scenarios digitally rather than through costly trial and error on the manufacturing floor. From both a cost and compliance perspective, that's a major advantage.
In continuous manufacturing environments, digital twins are becoming almost essential. These systems generate large volumes of real-time data, and understanding how variables interact is challenging without advanced modeling. Digital twins help provide context and predict downstream impacts of upstream changes.
We're also seeing growing interest in using digital twins to support equipment maintenance and reliability. By modeling equipment behavior over time, organizations can predict when maintenance is needed and avoid unplanned downtime. While this may sit slightly outside traditional GMP decision making, it still supports overall operational robustness.
What's notable across all these use cases is that successful implementations tend to start small. Organizations pilot digital twins in well-defined areas where value can be demonstrated without introducing unnecessary risk. They learn, refine, and then expand.
Early adopters are also very intentional about governance. They define clear roles for model ownership, performance monitoring, and decision escalation. When something looks off, there's a documented process for reviewing outputs and determining next steps.
Another lesson that's emerging is the importance of involving quality teams from the beginning. When quality is brought in late, digital twins are often viewed as a threat. When quality is involved early, they become partners in defining how the technology can be used compliantly.
Training is another critical success factor. Operators, engineers, and quality professionals need to understand not just how to use the digital twin, but what its limitations are. Over reliance on any model, no matter how sophisticated, introduces risk.
That's why many organizations emphasize that digital twins support human decision making rather than replace it. The goal is better decisions, not automated ones.
As adoption grows, organizations are also thinking about how digital twins fit into broader digital transformation efforts. They're not standalone tools, they connect to MES, historians, QMS platforms, and analytics environments.
That integration raises questions about data ownership, cybersecurity, and system interoperability. These aren't purely technical issues. They have regulatory and quality implications that need to be addressed holistically.
Looking ahead, the most mature organizations are already planning for the next stage. How do you validate performance over time? How do you detect model drift? How do you ensure consistency across sites?
These questions don't have simple answers, but they're becoming increasingly important as digital twins move from pilot projects to core operational tools.
In the next segment, we'll turn our attention to what regulators are likely to expect as digital twins become more common in GMP environments, and how organizations can prepare for that future without slowing innovation.
As digital twins become more embedded in GMP environments, another challenge starts to surface, and that's sustainability over time. Building a model is one thing. Maintaining its relevance, accuracy, and compliance over months and years is something else entirely.
Processes evolve, raw materials change, equipment is upgraded, operating ranges shift. If a digital twin isn't continuously evaluated against real world performance, it can quietly drift away from reality. That drift is one of the biggest hidden risks organizations face.
That's why performance monitoring becomes just as important as initial validation. Teams need defined metrics that answer simple but critical questions. Is the model still accurate? Are predictions aligning with observed outcomes? Are there conditions where performance degrades?
This is where many organizations start borrowing concepts from both quality systems and model lifecycle management. Periodic reviews, documented performance checks, and predefined triggers for retraining or recalibration help keep digital twins under control.
And those activities shouldn't live only with data science teams. Quality needs visibility into how models are performing and how decisions are being supported. That transparency is what allows organizations to confidently explain digital twin use during audits and inspections.
Another area that becomes more complex as adoption grows is decision ownership. When a digital twin flags a potential issue or suggests an optimization, who is responsible for acting on that information? Is it manufacturing, engineering, quality?
Without clear ownership, insights can either be ignored or acted on inconsistently. Successful organizations define decision pathways early. They clarify what actions are permitted, what requires escalation, and what must be formally documented.
This also ties into documentation practices. Digital twins generate insights continuously, but not every insight needs to become part of the GMP record. Teams need to decide what is recorded, how it's recorded, and why.
Over-documentation creates noise. Under-documentation creates risk. Striking the right balance is essential and often requires collaboration between quality, regulatory, and operational teams.
Another layer to consider is how digital twins interact with existing control strategies. A well designed model shouldn't conflict with established CPPs, CQAs, or specifications. Instead, it should reinforce them by providing earlier visibility into potential issues.
In some cases, digital twins reveal that existing control limits are either too tight or not sufficiently protective. When that happens, organizations need a structured way to evaluate whether changes are warranted and how to justify them.
That's where the value of digital twins becomes very tangible. They don't just optimize performance, they improve understanding. And deeper understanding supports stronger science based decisions.
As confidence grows, organizations often begin exploring more advanced use cases. Things like virtual process qualification, scenario testing during change implementation, or stress testing supply chain disruptions before they occur.
These applications can be powerful, but they also increase regulatory sensitivity. The closer a digital twin comes to influencing validated state or release decisions, the more rigor is required around controls, review, and documentation. And
Another consideration that often emerges later is inspection readiness. Inspectors may not ask specifically about digital twins at first, but they will ask about how decisions are made, how risks are identified, and how data is used to support control.
if a digital twin plays a role in those answers, teams need to be able to explain it clearly. What data feeds the model? How outputs are generated, how accuracy is monitored, and how humans remain accountable.
Organizations that struggle during inspections are often the ones that treat digital twins as purely technical tools. Organizations that do well are the ones that frame them as part of a broader quality and risk management strategy.
There's also a workforce element to this evolution. As digital twins become more common, roles begin to shift. Operators, engineers, and quality professionals are expected to engage with predictive insights rather than static reports.
That requires training, but it also requires trust. Teams need confidence that the model is reliable, and leadership needs confidence that teams know how to use it appropriately.
Trust is built through consistency, transparency, and governance. When models behave predictably and decisions are handled responsibly, adoption accelerates naturally.
At the same time, it's important to recognize that digital twins are not a silver bullet. They don't eliminate variability, they don't replace expertise, and they don't remove the need for strong fundamentals in process design and quality systems.
What they do offer is a new lens, a way to see interactions that were previously hidden, a way to anticipate outcomes rather than react to them.
And as organizations continue to digitize operations, that capability becomes increasingly valuable, especially in environments where complexity is rising and margins for error are shrinking.
The organizations that will benefit most from digital twins are the ones that treat them as long term capabilities rather than short term projects. Capabilities that evolve alongside processes, people, and regulatory expectations.
And as that evolution continues, the conversation shifts again, not from whether digital twins are viable, but from how far they can responsibly go in supporting real time, compliant manufacturing.
As digital twins continue to mature, the question for life sciences organizations is no longer whether they belong in regulated environments, but how intentionally they are implemented. The technology itself is moving quickly. What will differentiate organizations is the discipline around how it's governed, integrated, and sustained over time.
One of the clearest themes running through this conversation is that digital twins work best when they're treated as part of the quality ecosystem, not as standalone innovation projects. When they're embedded into existing quality systems, aligned with risk management frameworks, and supported by clear ownership, they become a powerful extension of how organizations understand and control their processes.
That integration also changes how teams think about compliance. Instead of viewing quality as something that reacts to deviations, digital twins support a more proactive approach. They help teams identify potential risks earlier, test assumptions safely, and make more informed decisions before issues escalate.
But with that capability comes responsibility. As digital twins become more influential, organizations must remain grounded in fundamental GMP principles. Human oversight, documentation, and accountability don't disappear. In many ways, they become even more important.
Another important takeaway is that success doesn't require perfection on day one. The organizations seeing the most value are the ones that start with well defined use cases, learn from early pilots, and scale thoughtfully. They accept that models will evolve and that governance must evolve with them.
This is also where leadership plays a critical role. Digital twins often cut across traditional organizational boundaries. R&D, manufacturing, quality, IT, and data science all need to be aligned around shared objectives and a common understanding of risk. Without that alignment, even the best technology struggles to deliver impact.
Looking ahead, digital twins are likely to play an increasingly central role in advanced manufacturing strategies. As processes become more complex and expectations around efficiency, resilience, and supply reliability continue to rise, the ability to simulate, predict, and adapt in real time becomes a competitive advantage.
At the same time, regulatory expectations will continue to evolve. Inspectors will ask more nuanced questions about how data is used, how models are controlled, and how decisions are justified. Organizations that invest early in transparency, documentation, and explainability will be better positioned as that scrutiny increases.
Ultimately, digital twins represent more than just a new tool. They represent a shift in how life sciences organizations think about process knowledge, control, and continuous improvement. When implemented thoughtfully, they support better science, stronger quality, and more resilient operations.
And that brings us back to where we started. Digital twins may sound futuristic, but they're already shaping how modern GMP environments operate. The opportunity now is to harness that capability in a way that aligns innovation with compliance and possibility with responsibility.
Because the future of life sciences manufacturing isn't just digital, it's intentional.
Thank you for joining us for today's deep dive. If your organization needs support navigating advanced digital transformation initiatives, strengthening regulatory and quality strategies, or modernizing GMP operations, Emma International is here to help. You can reach us anytime at info@emmainternational.com or visit us at emmainternational.com.
Make sure to subscribe on YouTube and Spotify so you never miss an episode. Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and stay innovative.